right, Johnny, thank you for being here with me today. Everybody, today with me, I have Johnny. He's a PhD student at the University of Georgia. He's going to talk to us today some about his experience in grad school and some of the research he does. So, Johnny, thanks for being here with me today, man.
Yeah, of course.
So we'll just get right into it. Like I said, you're a PhD student at University of Georgia. Can you give like a quick intro, kind of background on yourself?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in Georgia. I actually got my bachelor's here at UGA in 2017 in biology and entomology. In the meantime, between undergrad and graduate school, I taught for 2 years in Nashville teaching biology and ecology through the program called Teach for America. After my 2 year commitment, I came back to UGA. I had applied to grad school through their integrated life sciences program. So, kind of an umbrella program where you get to rotate through labs before eventually joining one of those labs.
Okay, that's awesome. So I was able to speak to Johnny very briefly before this, but for everyone else that's just coming in, Johnny, what kind of science do you do, and how did you choose that field?
Yeah, so kind of generally speaking, I study glycobiology.
Oh, you got the merch.
Yeah. And that falls under kind of the biochem, like you said, that I'm getting my degree in. When I was doing the rotations through ILS, I did two that were in glycobiology and one that was entomology. And I ended up going with the lab that I joined, one, because of the career outcomes. So kind of thinking towards the future, what kind of marketable skills that I would get. And then also the biomedical focus. So I get to kind of work in on a project that allows me to interact with clinicians on a regular basis.
Okay, that's cool. So speaking of your research and your project, can you give us some more, I guess, without giving away anything you don't want to give away if it's unpublished? Can you give us kind of a more in-depth view of your specific research?
Yeah, so I study a sugar molecule called O-glycnac. And so it's a single sugar that gets added on to thousands of proteins in every animal cell on the planet. And in particular, I study a protein called O-glycnac transferase, or OGT, that's responsible, it's the only enzyme responsible for adding the sugar onto other proteins in the nucleus and the cytoplasm. And so I'm characterizing variants of this protein that lead to intellectual disability and developmental delay. And so, kind of without saying too much, we're looking at doing some proof of concept experiments for some potential therapeutics. So these patients, we're talking maybe 100 to 200 in the world. But O-glycnac also has a reach in other in the biomedical space. It's involved in the pathologies of cancer, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, and diabetes, just to name a few.
Okay, that's really interesting. It's definitely something that is real world application. I know sometimes with science, that's something people fail to see. They're like, okay, well, what is it going to do? But that's cool. You said you interact with clinicians. Did you get to interact with the patients themselves, or no?
Yeah, so I have met some of the families at conferences. In fact, I wrote an article for our local grad student blog called the Athens Science Observer. And in there, with the permission of the family, we took a picture with them. Like we are definitely part of it is, them wanting to engage to try to learn more and understand more about this rare disease, and then also us learning from them.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's really great. They're helping people. I know, like everyone says, like all science helps people, but it's really cool. You have that like direct, like these are the people I'm helping with this research. So, what do you think something that people most misunderstand about your field of science?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So when it comes to kind of the broader, glycobiology, I think it's really I don't want to say understudied, but people really don't know about it. So I went to undergrad at UGA, got a degree in biology, never once thought it. But the lab that I work in, the PI actually got a NSF Biofoundry grant recently to try to democratize this glycobiology understanding. And that's under BioWef Great, if anyone wants to go look into it and see what kind of collaborations are there.
Mhm. Awesome. Well, that's great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Because yeah, I feel like it's even within like my own field, like just chemistry, even organic chemistry. There's just so much stuff that I just don't know about or like people misunderstand. But it's really good that you have people out there that are trying to spread that as like an understudied um, area. So I know you said you did. I'm sorry, I forget the exact name, but you did like a 2-year teaching program, and you did your undergrad at UGA as well. How did you get started in STEM? Like, where did you say it started for you?
Yeah, so always had a passion for biology, even as a little kid. But when I got to college was when I finally got to, kind of get my feet wet into research and everything that went into that. So UGA does a great job of involving undergraduate students in the research. I got to present the research that I was doing there at our institutional symposium. And then from there, it was really about how can I kind of do my part to teach the next generation of scientists. There were plenty of mentors on my path to bring me here, and I kind of want to be, a similar stepping stone for people in the future.
That's great to hear because yeah, I know some criticism I hear from the outside. Sometimes people fear that, especially like higher level academic like research in STEM is kind of can't think of the word like kind of gatekeepy almost like it's like yes we want to do this research we want people to like look at it and be like ooh ah about our research but we don't necessarily let people into our world per se. So that's really good that you want to. I really admire that you want to be a stepping stone for people into our world. Um, so speaking of getting into our world, what advice would you have for like a younger student, say like an undergrad that wanted to get involved in STEM or even a high
Yeah,
schooler?
so a couple of things that would be, I think, useful for them. One is you've definitely got to learn resilience. Most of a PhD is going to be failing. Your experiments aren't going to work. Things are always going wrong, and it's usually the last like 6 months of your PhD that everything goes right and you're able to get out. So being able to deal with failure as a part of the process. Um, Another kind of important thing, going towards building a culture within, the lab that you're in is open and honest communication, right? Like we just said, failure is going to happen. It's part of the process. But in order to learn and grow from that, we need to be able to be honest about, what happened and open to that feedback. And these kind of like, they call soft or people skills are really important, for building that culture. And if anyone wants to kind of learn more of some of those skills, there's a author, Brene Brown. I don't know if you've ever heard of her. Oh, well, you can't see the book.
Yeah.
But she's got a lot of books that talk about this one in particular is called Dare to Lead. And so they are skills that are really important for this culture, where you're resilient, you're honest and open, you're giving feedback, and you're really developing the potential of those students that are in your lab, or you're the person that you're looking for a mentor to help develop your potential as well.
Oh, that's great. And then one more time, what was the name of that book? I'm sorry.
So this particular book is called Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
Dare
And
to
so this
Lead. I'm just
one
going to write that
specifically
down.
focuses on applying her work. So she's got a PhD and a master's in social work, but applying it to the leadership role. So whether, you end up in industry or you end up in academia, these are skills that I think are really important for developing. And I mean, I didn't come in with these skills. A lot of these things I learned from her or, just kind of being in the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's something that I definitely learned is that not everybody learns or needs to be led the same way. Like before I was like in academia, I was in the army, and so like that's how I learned. That's how I succeeded. But then I was always aware of it, but I don't think I was necessarily aware to the degree of how much other people very much didn't learn the way I learned. Like in fact, like people would shut down in the way that I necessarily wanted someone to talk to me. Like I want someone to be very direct, and it won't necessarily upset me if they are kind of direct to the point that someone else might say they're mean. But other people really don't respond well to that, and some people need to be kind of led there, kind of like you kind of help them along, or some people need like kind of more active, kind of like praise or cheering on. It's always interesting trying to find out like you know what really motivates you and how you can, like you said, get them to reach their full potential.
Yeah.
So that's great. I'll try and link that book in the video. So speaking of advice, what's a piece of advice you wish someone told you when you started grad school?
So I mean, I kind of already knew this advice, but I think it's important to say is that when looking for a lab to join, you're thinking about grad school, is thinking about the culture that they've built there, talking to the grad students that are already there, because you want a lab and a PI that's going to support you. Graduate school is notoriously difficult, retention rates
Mm-hmm.
are, 50, 60%. And you really want somebody that's going to care not only about the work that you do and that you can do, but also care about the scientists themselves.
I think that's a good point. I've made some videos where I said, it's better to pick a lab where you fit better in, that maybe the research isn't as perfectly aligned with what you want, than pick perfect research but you don't align well with the group. I think that's really important, especially like you said, grad school is a tough time. You need someone like the culture that you're going to fit in with, back to learning style, like a working style that works for you, and then a a boss is going to be supportive in the way you need, however that looks for you. So that's great advice. Um, what would you say? Speaking of someone that's there for when the challenges are, what would you say the biggest challenges or the biggest challenge that you've had as a scientist?
Yeah, so grad school, it's kind of been three things that I would say that are the biggest challenges for me. Was one, again, dealing with failure. I was, the person in high school, undergrad that, always got good grades. But that's not really the focus of grad school. Where you're trying to develop into an independent research scientist, and part of that is failure. So dealing with that, learning to be okay with that. Financing grad school, while it is, I'm lucky enough to have a research stipend, life's expensive, fees and
Mm-hmm.
all of that ends up getting expensive. Then I guess the other big thing recently that's been difficult is ended up developing an autoimmune disorder. So
Mm.
kind of going back to that, picking a lab and a PI that'll support you. I've been really grateful to have that support as I try to figure this stuff out.
I'm sorry to hear that you developed an autoimmune disease, but I'm glad to hear that you have a support system and you have a supportive PI. Um, what else? So I know you said you kind of chose your field like forward thinking, which I think is great, and definitely the opposite with how I chose my field. Well, I didn't really look at any other fields, but I will be on, if I'm being honest, in retrospect, I was wholly unprepared when like picking grad schools, and I just kind of did it on vibes almost. But so, what are your aspirations after your PhD? You think you want to go to industry, go back to teaching, or?
So I always wanted to end up being a professor. That was kind of the goal. For really long. um, I like, this may be a controversial opinion, but I kind of like grant writing. I like, going into the literature, getting these ideas together, synthesizing all of that information, and asking what questions can we ask, what's important. But given kind of where things are in the job market and science
Mhm.
funding, I am more open now to industry positions. But I've got to get this paper out first, and then I'll be able to start looking and finding what's next for me.
Mhm. Oh, good luck on that paper. Yeah, because I remember writing those papers. It's like you're so close, but it's like um. So you kind of already mentioned it in your other one, but the question I have is what is the skill you think students interested in STEM should develop? And you said resilience, and I really agree with that. But do you think is there another one that you could think of that you think would be good to cultivate?
You said skills, right?
Yeah.
Um, I guess the other thing is networking. So a lot
Mm,
of the potential job opportunities that I'm looking at are, who does my professor know?
mhm.
Who have I talked to at that conference? Who have I talked to, when there was an invited speaker? Those are really, if you want to stay in academia and, to some degree for industry as well, those are the people that are going to be looking for a postdoc, or those are the people that, if you're already past that point and you're looking for trying to find a professor or, assistant professor job, those are the people that are going to be deciding that. So networking, I would say, is the other one that I definitely had to learn in graduate school.
I would agree. I think the first ever one of these interviews I did was with Dr. David Cragen, and he talks a lot about networking. He runs some like networking kind of seminars and stuff, like kind of in his spare time as like a passion project. And he talks to students a lot about that. But one of the things he says is the best time to network is before you need to network, because a lot of people feel uncomfortable because they feel like they're asking someone for something, or they relate it to like trying to like hit on someone at the bar, but like for a job. And he says the networking works the best when you're not actually asking someone for something. You're just genuinely interested in getting to know them, what they do. And that works the best when you don't need something from them yet. You don't need a job. So like, even if you're a first year grad student or senior, you can be networking, just meet people. And it doesn't always need to be business. Like ACS always has like those welcome happy hours. It can be fun. Like
Oh yeah, I mean, I
so.
started networking. My first year, there were scientists that I was, reading their papers. They were showing up to conferences, and I was like, "Come by my poster. Like, I'd like to, pick your brain, learn from you. I like the work you're doing. What do you think of my work?" I would definitely start early on the networking.
Yeah, that's something I wish I had done in my grad school career. And I don't know that I necessarily was actively putting it off, but it's just always one of those things. It seems like you have more time, and you're like, "Oh, I'll do it. I have so much time. I'll do and next thing you know, um,
Yeah,
but I
five
have,
years flies by pretty quickly.
yeah. So I have one more question for you that I had prop. So someone recently commented on a video. They were wondering what should they look for when they're picking their committee members? Like, what's some green flags? What's some red flags? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, okay. So committee members. So I mean, for me in particular, my PI was like, these are the four people you need. So, right, I didn't get much of a choice, but I mean, definitely you want people that are experts in, at least some aspect of what your project's focused on so they can give you, rigorous feedback. Um, but, right, if you ever have questions about, oh, is that person going to be, or how is that person going to be on my committee? Go to the
Mhm.
grad students. Go to the grad students that have them on the committee, that are in their lab. And I mean, at least for me, I'm open and honest about, my opinions on my lab. And that's the same advice I give if someone's like, hey, what do you think of this lab? I'll say, I can tell you what I've heard, but you should go to the people
Mhm.
that are there. They're the ones that are going to know what it's like.
I would agree. Yeah, you talk to them, talk to people that are on their committee. And what I noticed, I don't know if you saw any of this, there were some people that I personally wouldn't have worked for in their lab because I thought I don't want to say they were a bad PI because they weren't, but they did not, their style did not mesh with mine. But then I had talked to people that had them on their committee, and they said there was like night and day. They were like so chill. They were just like, "Oh yeah, man, work looks great."
Yeah, that's kind of like my PI. So I mean, during my committee meetings or during my qualifying exams, he had to be quiet. But speaking to the other grad students that have him, they know that he's going to push them until they don't know something. And I mean, it makes sense the way that he's explained it. He is, how did he describe it? He said that his job is to push your knowledge boundary. And in order to do that, he needs to know where it stops. And so he's going to push
Yeah.
you until you're like, I just don't know.
And I think that's something that's really uncomfortable for kind of everyone because no one wants to feel like they don't know something or they're wrong. I know that happened to me in my preliminary exam. A professor asked me something about the entropy of a reaction that I was doing, and I was like, I remember in my head, I was like, I have literally never thought of that, but God damn, is that relevant? Yeah, and I was like,
Well, I
oh,
had a
you gotta be
similar.
kidding me.
The first question I got during my qualifying exam was, what was the KM for the UDP GlickNAC transporter into the ER? And I was like, I don't know, but here's what I do know. So yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, there are definitely things you can't know everything.
yeah. And I just remember that one. I was like, God, I didn't even think about that. But yeah, but those are all the questions I had. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about, or any questions you had, or just stuff you
I
wanted to put
did
out
forget to
for
mention
people?
that I thought was at least interesting. So sometimes we get emails from the director of the center. But this month, actually, there was a article published in Nature Astronomy, and they have found sugars in space. So glycobiology, it's everywhere.
In space, space sugar. They're gonna sell that one day, like how like they have like sea salt. They're gonna have space sugar and charge them more for it.
So, but and then I can send you links to some of those other things I talked about, like the book or the BioF, the
Mm.
BioFoundry. Right, it's trying to democratize glycobiology. So it's definitely a kind of like service oriented thing. But I can send you those links so you want to put those in the description and everything.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I can definitely do that. Please send those to me. Well, Johnny, it's been great having you. Everybody, that was Johnny, and he's from University of Georgia, and he's studying glycobiology for his PhD. Johnny, thank you.
Thanks, Evan.